This is group 4, and we will be talking about part 4 to part 7 now. So speaking of part 4.1, me, Eunice, and Jasmine will be in charge of this part. For part 4.1.1.1, the first assessment is a pretest, and the assessment function is diagnosis and support of learning. It meets these of the ILOs from the cognitive skills and affective domain. And for the next task is a pre-writing task called animal show. The assessment function is support of learning, and it meets these ILOs from these domains. And the last task in activity 7 is a learning log, including a checklist and a writing task. And this is a support of learning. The function is support of learning. And these are the ILOs that it meets according to these domains. And now for 4.1.1.2, we'll be talking about activity 8. And here are the first task, which is a pretest with feedback, and it's called Share Your Animal with Us. The assessment function is diagnosis and support of learning, and it meets these ILOs from these 3 domains. And for the next task is a group discussion core, which is your favorite animal. The assessment function is support of learning, and it meets these ILOs from the cognitive skills and affective domain. And for the last task in this activity is a homework, which is a writing task, is support of learning, and it meets these ILOs from the 3 domains. And now,
oh, thank you, Eunice. So this is the learning outcomes of activity 9. So we have a pretest, which is a KWL chart, and it serves as a diagnostic assessment, and it helps to assess students' prior knowledge, and it meets these 3 outcomes of the 3 domain. Next, please. So this is a sample of the KWL chart, and it can help us to identify the students' knowledge gap and learning progress. Next, please. So this here we'll have a presentation and a peer evaluation, and it serves as a summative assessment, and the assessment function is accountability, and we have tried to match the domain of the 3 special domain to our activity. Next. So last but not least, we will end with a learning log, which is a checklist and a composition, and it is also accountability for the assessment function. At the same time, it serves as a summative assessment to check the students' knowledge of the whole chapter. Next, please.
So we have gone through all the authentic tasks mentioned by my group mates. So for us, in our refinement, we have already used 3 approaches to attain multidimensional assessment methods. Next page, please. So for the descriptive performance indicators and assessment rubrics, which tries to be very clear and friendly to primary 1 students, we want to train students to be effective assessors. They can both learn from others and act on the descriptors with their own strategies. And then through cross-checking their own performance, they are going to get familiarized what they are expected to do. Also, it is a forum for them to monitor their own learning progress, promotion, learning to learn. Next page, please. Next page, please. So for 4.2, I would like to share you with the framework of school assessment practice. As we have already mentioned, we are going to put emphasis on formative assessment. Next page, please. Including internal assessments and learning and teaching progress. We are going to focus on the function of formative assessment to highlight students' personal learning progress, aligning with learning objectives and assessment criteria, and allow students to perform self-assessment. Also, we try to help students to know which level they're actually in and help them to understand what they're going to do next. Next page, please. With reference to curriculum documents, we know that formative assessment actually needs to collect evidence and provide feedbacks to students. So we try to diagnose students' difficulties and provide timely feedback to students, also ask language input to students, and also we would like to provide guidance after receiving and returning their homework and learning logs to them. To help them monitor their own learning progress, we try to use different self-evaluation checklists to let students to review and improve on their own learning process. Next page, please. And as for formative assessment, it is a non-graded assessment tool which tries to promote self-assessment to students, extend assessment for learning to assessment as learning. to cater to diversity. So we use pretest in every activity to know and examine students' prior knowledge. Next page, please. And we also provide different opportunities for students to showcase their own performance. Like in pretest, they can demonstrate their prior knowledge. In the main task, they can apply their new learned knowledge in a language-rich environment. And then students can evaluate themselves and apply and create their own product in the learning log. Next page, please. So for summative assessment, next page, please. We're going to talk about trying to use summative assessment formatively. We would like to provide feedback and sufficient opportunities for students to revise on their work. Also, after the summative assessment, we would like to analyze their own performances. Next page, please. So for 4.3, we're going to talk about feedback. Next page, please. As the feedback of these assessments, it is noticed that feedback can be provided throughout all the authentic tasks because we want to maximize the functions of feedback, including information, direction, and motivation. Next page, please. As for feedback's function, in order to effectively make use of feedback, we try to cater different principles suggested by Barry. We would like to provide adequate feedback and provide timely feedback to students. And also this feedback will focus on their learning instead of their personal characteristics. And also we would like to match these feedbacks to the assessment objectives. Also, we would like to provide motivating and supportive feedback to students to help them to know more about learning strategies and encourage them to take actions. Next page, please. And for the feedback, we can see that we have different checklists for students to fill in. Actually, we're going to train students to be effective assessors as well. So students can get further familiarized with the criteria. They can make know what actually it is expected to behave and tries to take action on the feedback. Next page, please. So, yes.
And I'm Eunice, and I'll be talking about part 5. I'll be in charge of 5.1.1. And for 5.1.1 is focused on the learning process. Throughout our refinement, all authentic tasks has met the requirements of the 10 principles. And for example, in teaching objectives, we have holistic and rounded learning experience, including cognitive, affective, and skill domain. It helps promote AFL, assessment for learning, and AAL, assessment as learning. We also included diverse and multidimensional assessment, and we have aligned it with Bloom's taxonomy. And for feedback, we have authentic learning tasks and multidimensional assessment, which include self-peered teachers and parents feedback to the student, and such feedback are correctional, motivating, direction, and target oriented. And teachers also provide timely feedback that help recognize student efforts. And we also have a scaffolding process, which can help narrow down the gap between existing performance and expected performance.
So for the assessment done by different stakeholders, we can see that we have tried to make effective use of the assessment for learning, and assessment of learning. And we try to use different kinds of assessment to discover the student learning. At the same time, we involve different stakeholders like parents, and we try to promote homeschool collaboration through having the data, learning log, and some kind of self-assessment so parents can monitor the students' learning progress. Next, please. And we have covered these principles, and at the same time, different from the original assessment, we have tried to focus on the metacognitive activities. At the same time, students can identify what they have learned, and they can revise their own work and transfer their learning from this context to another context. Next, please.
And we would like to put emphasis on pretest to examine students' prior knowledge and provide sufficient language input. Also, we would like to create a language-rich environment and progressively hit different order thinking skills with reference to Bloom's taxonomy. To better prepare for the next key stage, we would like to use authentic tasks to strengthen students' generic skills and develop their keenness to learn English in future. Next page, please. And we would like to use and maximize the feedback functions through formative assessment. Also, we use different approaches to complete all the tasks with diagnostic assessment, select response assessment, constructed response assessment, online assessment, authentic assessment, production assessment, and alternative assessment. To use core concepts, and next page, please.
This part, I will follow up the assessment method and learning outcome. So different from the original assessment, we'll focus on the authentic progress, and at the same time there are 4 skills covered, and the whole progress will be in a progressive manner, and we'll make use of the Bloom taxonomy from the create to understanding. And we have pre-test and tasks that have marking criteria made for students so we can maximize the function of feedback. Next, please.
And for the reflection part for 6.1, we are going to talk about teaching objectives. And next page, please. We try to align Bloom's taxonomy very well to use the concrete enough, observable enough, and measurable enough action verbs to state our learning objectives. Next page, please.
I'm Eunice, and I'll be talking about 6.2, which is lesson designed. In our refined lesson plan, we have one thing that's different from the old one, which is we have pretest in every activity to activate the prior knowledge of students. For example, we have the KWL chart. We have the Newport activity. We also have our activity for teacher to stick words on the blackboard to demonstrate to student. And we also have authentic tasks and scaffolding throughout all activities.
So for 6.3, I would like to talk about the multidimensional method. So next, please. So we have made use of checklists. We have made use of checklists, descriptors, and some rubrics, so that the assessment, throughout the assessment, we can collect the evidence of student learning performance, and we can help the students evaluate their strength and weakness. It's a huge difference from the original assessment method. Next, please. So for the 6.4, for the 10 assessment principle, next. We can see that in the original assessment, next please. In the original assessment, they are only using principle 6 and principle number 9. And after refinement, we have made use of all 10 principles in our free activities. Next, please.
So for conclusion, next page, please. We're going to provide authentic learning experience to cater students' learning needs and teachers' readiness. Also, we would like to provide rounded learning experience for students to engage into cross-curricular activities. Also, for different stakeholders, we would like to invite their parents and also students themselves to evaluate their learning progress. Also, we would like to as well as promotion the metacognitive activities. Next page, please. And for the students' prior knowledge, we have already mentioned we would like to use pretest in every activity. Also, we would like to use pretest results to refer their already built schema and new learned knowledge to adjust teaching and learning activities. Also, through these authentic tasks, we would like to use scaffolding throughout activities to cater students' needs. We would like to position students as a center of learning and develop their own independence in learning process. So thank you for your listening. 我哋冇超15